Welcome. We're doing a little series on the 3 Psalms that David headed in the King James Bible, al-taskit. That Hebrew phrase means do not destroy. It may have been an instruction to the chief musician, the leader of the worship at God's house, the temple, that this is a precious poem, that it's to be kept as something important. It's not to be considered as rubbish because God has given this message, and so it's to be treated with respect. Or maybe David headed these Psalms al-taskit as a prayer, saying to God, God, Israel are your special people. Do not destroy them. Save them, even as you have promised. So the psalm we're looking at today, as I say, it's the second in the series. It's Psalm number 58. My name is Keith Simons. I'm a Bible teacher from England, presenting these talks on how to understand the King James Bible using the book of Psalms. Today turning to Psalm 58, which has a heading in the King James Bible, to the chief musician, al-taskit, Miktam of David. These 3 Psalms headed Do Not Destroy all have this same additional word in the heading, Miktam. A Miktam means really an engraved poem. Some people have translated it a golden poem. They're considered special, these poems. So let's look at what David wrote, as we always do, word by word and verse by verse, seeking to understand the meaning. He begins with a question. Verse 1. Do ye indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? So 2 words there, righteousness and uprightly, with the corresponding meaning. Do you speak what's good and right? Do you judge in the proper way? But there's a curious wordplay here that is only just obvious to us from the English. David asks the people, do you speak righteousness, O congregation? What is a congregation? A congregation is a group of people who gather together in silence. They listen in silence. They're silent people. And that's the meaning of the Hebrew word for congregation. And David asks them, do you speak, you silent people? You have a duty to speak, to declare what is right and good, but you are silent. So there's a contradiction going on even in David's question there. And that contradiction is carried on in the second part, where he says, do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? Okay, the Hebrew word there for men is the name of the first man, Adam. O ye sons of Adam. But what does Adam mean? Well, it sounds very similar to the Hebrew word for blood, dam. So is David saying, do you judge uprightly, you bloodthirsty men? Well, no. Bloodthirsty men want to kill. Bloodthirsty men love violence. Do they judge uprightly? Do they judge in accordance with the law? Do they do what is right and proper? No, of course they don't. Just as the silent people are neglecting to speak what is right and good, so the sons of men, these bloodthirsty men, are judging in an evil way. These Psalms this little group seemed to come from the time of David's life when Saul was chasing after him. That's clear in the headings of Psalm 57, the previous psalm, and Psalm 59, the last in that little series. So Saul was the king of Israel, Israel's chief judge, and yet his judgment against David, a good and upright man, was that David must die because Saul was jealous of him. That's what happens when people turn to wicked behaviour. They don't do what's good and upright. They don't speak when they should. They remain silent. And they won't speak up on David's behalf. And even the judges, even the important people, they're using justice, so-called, as a means to further what they want to do, to promote their own selfish ambition, to cause trouble, when justice was given and provided by God as a means to set things right, the means to stop evildoers. Yet when evil people like Saul take control, justice is used as a means of doing evil. How terrible. The order that God has created has been perverted to the opposite. And with that thought in mind, David continues in verse 2, Yea, in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. Okay, it begins with the word yea, which means yes, but David is not answering yes to any of his previous questions. Because if you ask, do you speak righteousness? And the answer is yes, then you do speak righteousness. And if you ask, do ye judge uprightly? And you answer yes, then the answer is, well, you do judge uprightly. So David, by the word yea here, is saying really what he is suggesting in that first verse, that the congregation are being silent when they should speak, that the sons of men are bloodthirsty men who judge wrongly. David is saying, yes, I'm right with this observation. I'm right to think that justice is perverted in this land, because in heart ye work wickedness. Ye means you. We've had that a few times already in this psalm. So he's speaking again to this congregation, or to the sons of men, to the people who he was addressing in verse 1. And he says, it's in your heart. From your heart, wickedness is coming forth. And the heart, the deepest part of the person, deep inside that person, wicked things are coming out. But they're showing themselves in the wicked actions of the person. Ye work wickedness. What's your work? The things that you actually do. Your heart may contain the things that you desire and the things that you think, but your work is showing what your heart desires. And what your heart desires here is wickedness. You're desiring to do these evil things, and therefore you're doing them. Second half of the verse, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. Okay, what should the judges be weighing up in their minds? What should they be thinking about? About the law? About what's right and proper and good to do? About what they should be doing? But what do evil judges weigh up in their minds? Instead of weighing up justice, they weigh up violence. They weigh up cruelty, the cruelty of their own hands, the cruelty that they themselves are showing in this world. That is what fills their minds. That is how they do these evil things. David proceeds now with an examination of just how evil people are. He says in verse 3, The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. His point is that we're born in sin, that it is our nature to do wrong things, not the nature God created for us, but the nature of man ever since the first people turned away from God. And if that is true of all people, how much more of those who choose to do wicked and evil acts on purpose? This story begins when they are born, from the womb, the part of the mother from which they are born. They are estranged, he says. To be estranged means to become a stranger. But the Hebrew word could be translated, they turn aside. The wicked turn aside from the womb. They go astray. They wander off as soon as they be born, speaking lies. From the beginning of their life, these people have chosen at every opportunity to go in the evil way. They had the opportunity, perhaps, to return to the right way, to follow God's law, to do what God wants. But no, from the beginning of their lives, they've chosen this wrong path. They've chosen to wander. They've chosen to turn away. They've chosen to be strangers to God's law, to God's people, to all that is right and good, because what they speak at the end of verse 3 is lies. It is untrue statements by which they live. And so it's like poison. Verses 4 and 5. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. Let's just stop there before we come to the next word picture, because these word pictures are coming thick and fast, and I think we need to take them apart. Their poison, the Hebrew word also means anger. So it could be translated, their anger is like the poison of a serpent. A serpent is an old-fashioned word for a snake. So, like a deadly snake, and if you don't have snakes in your country, we have very few here in England. Snakes are extremely dangerous, some of them. There are snakes which are quite harmless, but David is clearly not talking about those. And their danger is in their bite. They've got venom with which, if they bite a person, it's often deadly, just a single bite. And because snakes, many of them are small, they can hide away, and you're quite unaware that there is a deadly snake close to you. You reach out, maybe to pick up some wood or to do a bit of gardening, and the snake bites and holds on to a person until that person is dead. That is how these wicked people behave. Remember, we're talking about the most wicked people who've turned away from everything that is good, who are choosing on purpose to do evil. And David pursues this word picture. He's talked about the poison of a snake, so now he's going to give a specific little story about a snake. The rest of verse 4, and I'll read into verse 5. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, which will not hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. An adder is a type of snake. As is so often true with names of animals in the Bible, we're not sure of the specific species. It may not actually mean an adder here, but we're talking about one or other of the species of snakes. And this snake has been captured by a snake charmer. This is someone who it used to be a popular entertainment. He keeps snakes as pets, and he's taught those snakes to dance by playing a musical instrument. He can charm those snakes. He can control them. He can make them to dance, and people give money and people pay him. Yet the Hebrew words are showing us that this is not just an art form. There's something more going on here, because the language that David is using in verse 5 in the Hebrew, charmers and wisely, these words refer to magic. These charmers are trying to control their snakes by magic. Now, it's not often that the Bible uses magic in its word pictures. If you read the book of Deuteronomy, you'll find out that God's people were not permitted to use magic of any kind. And that's still true today. Magic is against God's law. And so these charmers who are using magic to control this snake, they're using every power, even the powers of the supernatural, to control this snake. But the snake is deaf. It's not listening. The charmers are using their magic to try to get this snake to dance, but the snake has stopped her ear. Well, the snake can't put any hands in its ears because it doesn't have hands. But it's refusing to listen. It's refusing to listen to the music, to the charming, to the magic. And the implication is it goes and it bites the charmer and kills the snake charmer. The person who thought they could control this snake by magic is killed by the snake that refused to listen to the magic. That's David's word picture. What does he mean? He said of the evil people, they are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, which will not hearken or listen to the voice of charmers. Wicked people are like that snake. You try to control them with all the skills and all the manipulation you know. You might even use the supernatural. You might even use magic to try to control them. It will all fail. And the reason it will fail is that they are so desperate to do evil that they will attack you and they will kill you. You cannot control these people. I remember meeting a prison guard on one occasion, and I said to him, how do you control those prisoners? You're in charge of some of the most violent people in the country. How can you control people like that? He says the first lesson you have to learn is that you cannot control them. Not by any means, not by any method. They are manipulative people. They are people who are taking advantage of you at every opportunity. And the moment you think that you're controlling them, the truth is that they are controlling you. Back to the Psalm, verse 6. David prays, break their teeth, O God, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Lord. Okay, he's changed his word picture. They're not like snakes now. They're like lions, young, fierce lions. Lions were the most fierce of many wild animals that lived in ancient Israel. Nowadays, I think you'll only find them in the zoo in Israel. But formerly, they roamed in the forests. And there are quite a few places in the Bible where people were killed by lions. David prays, break their teeth. Well, if the lion's teeth are broken, it cannot seize its prey. It cannot tear apart other animals. Okay, David is not praying against lions here, but men who are fierce like lions and cruel like lions. David is saying, stop them. God, I pray that you will take from them their power to do these cruel and evil things like a lion, that loses its teeth. And then he continues, verse 7, let them melt away as waters that run continually. He means let them be like water that runs away, that is just lost, or that's unstable, that it can't remain in the same place, or that is useless. Let them melt away. Let them go away. Let them run away. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. Another word picture here. When the wicked man takes a bow, as in a bow and arrows, and he bends the bow to shoot, well, may he utterly fail. Let them be as cut in pieces. That's the arrows, cut in pieces. The Hebrew word there actually used is the word for circumcise. And what David means is let the arrows lose their heads. In other words, if an arrow has no sharp point, it's useless. May he bend that bow to shoot his arrow, but may it be utterly useless, as if he's shooting arrows without heads that can't cause trouble, that cannot kill people. David is praying for the defeat of this wicked person's plans. And he goes further in verse 8, once more changing the word picture. As a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away. I do a bit of gardening, vegetable gardening, and one of the great troubles we have is slugs and snails. Every evening, and I'm out there looking for them, and I don't find many, but they come anyway at night, and they're real trouble. They eat the young plants. But David's word picture here, a snail melteth. Well, he might mean a snail or he might mean a slug. The difference between the two, if you don't have both in your country, is that a snail has a shell and a slug has none. But the word picture works for both of them. They have very moist bodies. And if a bird attacks them, or if they suffer some other problem as they're dying, they seem just to melt away. In fact, even when they're living, they seem to melt away because they leave a trail of water, of slime, we say, behind them. And, it's as if it's an animal that is just dissolving as it lives, as a snail which melteth. Let every one of them pass away. He's saying, let every one of those evil people just be destroyed and turn to nothingness, like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Okay, a woman's untimely birth. Untimely means, like it sounds, at the wrong time. So if a woman gives birth too early, well, that baby might be born dead, or it may be too weak to continue to live. They didn't have modern hospital treatments then. Maybe the baby would live for just a few hours and die. That they may not see the sun. So this is like the child that dies before it's born, that dies in its mother's womb. David is saying, these wicked people, may it be like that for them, that their judgment comes suddenly and unexpectedly, that God calls them to account for their evil acts. Verse 9, before your pots can feel the thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, both living and in his wrath. First part of the verse, before your pots can feel the thorns. The pots here are cooking pots. We say pans in England today, pans. What you cook in. Okay, the thorns. Well, you would try to gather wood to burn underneath your pots for cooking purposes, but you can't always get good wood. So sometimes you gather dried up thorns, and the feature of dried up thorns is that they burn very, very quickly. So before your pots can feel the thorns, before the pots have even warmed up in this very fast fire, He, God, shall take them, the wicked people, away as with a whirlwind. So what it's saying is that the judgment against these wicked people happens very, very suddenly. So suddenly that your cooking pot would not even have time to heat up. That is how suddenly God's judgment can be against them, as with a whirlwind. This is the phenomenon where wind spins around in a tight circle, and these whirlwinds move across the country, destroying perhaps even houses as they go. How dreadful! How dreadful if judgment comes against you, both living and in the wrath of God. We hope for a peaceful death. We hope to die with our family surrounding us, perhaps, in a comfortable situation, but to be taken from this world while you are still living, like Korah at the time of Moses, where the ground just opened and swallowed him up alive. To die, to face God's judgment in such a situation, and in God's wrath too, in God's anger. When a good person dies, when a righteous person dies, he doesn't die in the anger of God. He's being received back into God's home, into heaven. But for an evil person, it is in the anger of God, the wrath of God, that he dies. He is dying only to face God's judgment against his wicked deeds. Verse 10. The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. The vengeance, the revenge it means. God taking revenge against the evil acts that this wicked person has done. Why does the righteous rejoice when he sees the wicked person's trouble? He's not rejoicing in the wicked person's suffering. He's rejoicing in the goodness of God because God has rescued him from that wicked person's actions. He, the righteous person, shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. Oh, a strange word picture there. The blood of the wicked. So much of it that it's like a pool, that it's washing over the feet of the righteous person, because God's judgment has been so severe and so firm. Yes, God has taught us to forgive people, not to carry vengeful thoughts against them, not to try and get revenge against people, because our revenge is wrong, isn't it? Our revenge is filled with evil thoughts and with anger and with the desire to show cruelty. But when God takes vengeance, when God takes revenge, there is no evil thought in God's mind. God is doing justice and righteousness and what is right and proper, and he is dealing with the evil that is in this world, and he is setting things right. That's why we must turn over our desire for revenge to God, so that God will deal with it in the way that is right, and not as we would, and deal with it in the way that is evil. Verse 11. So that a man shall say, Verily there is a reward for the righteous. Verily he is a God that judgeth in the earth. So this is our conclusion now of this story about evil people, that God's judgment comes against them unless they repent, Unless they turn away from it, they will not escape God's judgment. And then a man shall say, people everywhere will say, that verily, truly, there is a reward for the righteous. There didn't seem to be a reward for good people. When evil people were so strong and powerful against them and dealing so cruelly with them, all the rewards looked to be for doing what was evil and wrong. But now we see, now that we've seen the judgment of God, we can declare that God cares about people who are right and good. And just as God's vengeance is against evil people, so God will reward those who turn to him, who are faithful to him, who serve them. And this observer will also say, verily, he is a God that judgeth in the earth. Previously, when all these troubles were happening, the observer might have thought that God only cared about what happened in heaven, that God ignored what was going on in the earth. But now that God's judgment is seen at the end of this psalm, now everyone can see that God does judge what happens in the earth, that God does have power in this world, that God will sort out evil people from good people, that he will work in this world to establish what is good and righteous, and to establish the rule of his Son, his Messiah, a perfect rule over all the earth and over heaven too, when nothing evil will happen anymore. Please write to me. My email address is 333kjv@gmail.com. My name, Keith Simons. Please tell me the country you're from or the state of the United States. 333kjv@gmail.com. And now let me read to you the whole of Psalm 58. To the chief musician, Altaskit, Miktam of David. Do ye indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? Yea, in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, which will not hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. Break their teeth, O God, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Lord. Let them melt away, as waters which run continually. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. As a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away. Like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. Before your pots can feel the thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, both living and in his wrath. The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked, so that a man shall say, verily, there is a reward for the righteous. Verily, he is a God that judgeth in the earth.